Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Live at the Waterhole with Wild Earth TV in association with Africam. I will be your host for the next 2 hours. My name is Ben Coley, and I will be sharing all of these beautiful images with you and hopefully giving you some interesting information about what you're seeing. In addition to that, this being a live and interactive broadcast or show, please do send in your questions, your comments about things that we're seeing or things that you'd like to know about all things to do with nature or anything else for that matter. And as always, do my absolute best to try and answer them for you. But what a beautiful way to start the day. We have a huge dazzle of zebra and a lone elephant bull tolerating all of this stripy chaos at his drinking spot up in Oldonyo Lodge in Kenya. But what a lovely way to start the day. So I'd love to hear where you're from, what you're up to, and say, please do send in those questions. But for now, let's enjoy this spectacular view up at Oldonyo. Yeah, well, it seems we've ducked down to Tembe Elephant Park. One or two camera issues up there in Kenya, but that was a lovely way to start the show. Quintessential Africa with a huge herd of zebras and an elephant. But we have substituted one elephant for currently four elephants, although knowing Tembe is a waterhole we regularly visit, I'm sure there are others hiding within the periphery. If you were watching yesterday, we had some great games of hide and seek with some elephants, including one who was able to hide behind a single trunked tree, which was in itself rather impressive. I see some movement in the right hand side of the screen there. There's often this nice group of bulls that hang out here during the day, enjoying the shade. I'm sure they've all had a drink, having a little bit of a dust bath, trying to deal with some of this rather oppressive heat, particularly at the moment. Summer is most definitely coming, and it has been pretty warm the last few days, mid 30s where we are here in Hoedspruit in the Lowveld, or where I am. In fact, forecast to be up to 38 today, tomorrow 39. So summer definitely coming, but alas, no rain forecast at the moment. Although I'm checking the weather forecast for my area now, and it does look as if possibly on the 24th there is a 75% chance of rain. Let's hope that remains the same. So not too oppressive heat down at Tenby today. According to my forecast, only going to be high 20s, 28, 29. It's supposed to be at Tenby. Well, there's a lovely view. Thank you for that, Mr. Elephant. Look at all that dung scattered around everywhere. Very reddish for this time of year. Of course, these animals eating the predominantly leaves, well, a few leaves, but mostly twigs and barks, which are very rich in tannins, which has the effect of turning one's dung very brownish in color or reddish in color, but very good for the environment. All of those little microbes and all of that partially digested material now leaching back into the ground. And as the elephants walk over and over, and other animals come down to the water's edge, their hooves and their feet are sort of squashing that dung into the soil, making it a nice nutrient rich area for new plant life to grow. Brazen Hearted, good morning to you. You are in Texas. It's so wonderful to know that we are sharing these images with people from quite literally across the globe. It's quite humbling to know that so many of you are tuning in and that we have the ability to bring these incredible images into your lives and into your homes. So I hope you enjoy the show, Brazen Hearted. And you're crossing your fingers and your toes, and your eyes are crossed as well. Well, don't push those too hard for rain on the 24th. Yeah, well, we all are. It would be very nice to have at the moment, but that's quite a long way ahead. I don't know if I trust weather forecasts over a week in advance, but good to know that there's a possibility at least. Greetings, Mindy Tillapow. Yes, it is I. I am back. Um, but yeah, I was here yesterday. I'll be here again tomorrow, and I've got a couple of other days scheduled in to do this and share these stories with you over the next month or so. And somebody actually asked whether I would be back out on sunrise sunset safaris yesterday, which I didn't actually answer. But yes, if all goes according to plan, I will be back at Juma at some point in December for a couple of weeks, which I'm very, very excited about to see Columba's little princess as well, Chipondo, as I know she has recently been named. So I'm very excited to catch up with her, especially. Harold, you're asking if the first European birds have arrived. I'm trying to think if I've seen any European birds. Certainly, a lot of the intra-African migrants, those who stay south of the Sahara, are back. I haven't seen any barn swallows yet, which would be one that I'd very much associate with the European birds. The European rollers I have not yet seen, or the European bee eaters, but I'm sure that they won't be long till they arrive. I mentioned yesterday somebody I saw on a group that I follow said that they did hear some European bee eaters somewhere. I heard my first red-chested cuckoo yesterday. I saw a yellow-billed kite today whilst I was driving around this morning. The Wahlberg's eagles are back. So almost on a daily basis, we're hearing more, and I'm hearing more and more bird calls that I would associate with some of the classes cuckoos, which actually are residents here year round. They've started calling excessively. Beautiful little sort of emerald colored cuckoos that parasitize a lot of the sunbirds, particularly. So I don't know if I personally have seen a more traditional European bird yet, or that I can think of, but if they're not here yet, I'm sure they will be arriving very, very shortly. Got some nice birds down there at Tenby as well. We've got there's a woolly neck stork on the right. Just trying to see what this is in front of the elephant on the left. It's another woolly neck stork. We saw yellow-billed storks, look like some white-faced whistling ducks that were diving around in the water as well. We had some lovely views of some little passerines up at Lontoro in Kenya yesterday. Some firefinches and a white-browed sparrow weaver, I believe. So I always give myself a little caveat there, as I don't know the Kenyan birds anywhere near as well as I know the Southern African birds, but so it's always a little bit of a challenge. I'm sure there are some slightly different species to be seen up there. Oh, there's a grey heron. See that little kink in the heron's neck, which it uses almost like an old school catapult, and pulls it back into an S shape, and then there's almost like a little release, and it springs forward, and that razor sharp beak looks like a sword there will stab forward and grab itself some fish when the time comes. Good afternoon to you, Darcy Miller. Yes, so hopefully back in Juma in December at some point. Stay tuned. I will let you know more when things are 100% confirmed. And Azure Jewel, so saying good day. Thank you for the guidance. I don't know if it's guidance, guiding certainly. I don't know if I would necessarily listen to my guidance at all times, but hopefully we can say bring some interesting facts and discussions into your day today. There's a lovely African jacana with a youngster there as well. The lily trotters, as they're otherwise known, with massive toes that we can't really appreciate here, but spreading out that surface area, allowing them to walk across the lily pads and the aquatic vegetation dominating the shoreline there. Beautiful birds, the jacanas with that little blue head. Ian, difficult to say how common grey herons are at Tenby, but pretty common. They are common across the place. You won't really find them is in the very dry, arid areas like the Kalahari areas of Namibia, but wherever you'll find water, and of course, this being close to the Indian Ocean, um, the there is a lot more or a higher rainfall throughout the year along the eastern seaboard of South Africa. So I would go out on a limb and say they are pretty common, but I've never actually worked in Tempe Elephant Park, so hard for me to categorically state that they are common, but I see no reason why they would not be. It's between the grey heron and the black-headed heron, two of the most common birds that you're going to find around the water sources, as well as blacksmith lapwings. The three-banded plovers seem to be rife. I don't think I'd very rare that you go to a waterhole and don't see at least one three-banded plover wandering along the shoreline. And there are our ubiquitous Egyptian geese, which are also very prevalent throughout the southern African area. Nice to see all the whistling ducks with their bottoms sticking up in the air like that. Obviously, some interesting things to be had just on the surface or underneath the surface there. That's rather relaxing watching the ducks do their thing. Obviously, some nice plant matter that's possibly being exposed there underneath the water. Generally, they'll be eating plant matter, seeds. They love sedge seeds, apparently. So sedges are kind of like aquatic grass that you can normally tell because they have square stems instead of round stems if you want to identify sedge, but always associated with aquatic environments. And sedges do an excellent job with sort of natural filtration. They remove toxins from the water. So, good thing to have sedges, certainly. And Brazen-hearted, you're saying one of your favourite birds are the blue herons in the US. Well, I'm afraid I don't know much about blue herons, but they do sound very nice. Certainly, I hope they are a beautiful sapphire, vibrant blue colour, although I imagine it's probably more of a tentative shade of grey. But they're impressive birds, herons. Particularly my favourite one here, as I'm sure it is for many, the Goliath heron out here, which is a magnificent creature, standing, best part of 1.5 meters tall. This young elephant having a drink with his floppy left ear. Has he got a bit of an issue with the cartilage there? Makes you wonder how much that would affect the elephant's ability to hear. It's covering the ear canal and losing out on that added surface area to channel the sounds into those little bones inside the inner ear. But you do see elephants with damaged ear cartilage with a relative amount of regularity, and it certainly doesn't seem to perturb them at all. I'm sure they are more than capable of still hearing everything around them, but it'd be interesting to know if it does have a more long-term effect. Oh, thank you, Brazen-hearted. I see, yes, you've just clarified that your blue heron is more grey than blue, but more blue than the grey heron. But yes, it's a shame. It would be lovely if it was, say, this radiant sapphire-esque blue. But we'll take a bluish grey. That's all right. I shall have to have a quick look online and see if I can find a picture of one. Maybe I shall do that right now. Always good to learn about these birds. There are 10,000 species worldwide, so always good to keep abreast of the situation. Ah, yes, it does look very similar to the grey heron, actually, with the little crest on the back and a little yellowish beak and a little sort of marking above the eye, very similar to a grey heron. But yes, I agree. Maybe a touch more bluish, I'm sure, particularly in the right light. Be interested. I'm assuming they're the same genus. I'm going to get stuck down the rabbit hole of taxonomy now. Yes, both in the Ardea genus, Ardea, and all the herons are in the family of well, that's a very difficult one to say, Ardeidae. I always remember the crane family is Gruidae because there is a constellation in the night sky called Grus, the crane, which was named after or named by the Dutch actually when they came exploring the southern hemisphere down in the 1600s. It's a sort of a wonky cross shape up in the southern part of the sky that you wouldn't be able to see from more northern latitudes, which is why it was only added much later to the now officially recognized group of 88 constellations in the night sky. So there is a crane up there. Many birds, of course, particularly down here in the southern hemisphere as well. We have a toucan, we have a bird of paradise, quite a few fish. There's flying fish, there's a dorado, some weird, wonderful constellations down here. Of course, we have Pavo the peacock as well, one of my favourites. But alas, not ones that we talk about or I tend to talk about very often in my stargazing evenings, where I did one last night and I have another one scheduled for tonight. Because they were only introduced much more recently in historical times, there isn't really any mythology behind them because they were merely added to fill the void in the southern hemisphere that the Greeks and the Mesopotamians and the Romans they couldn't see that area of sky, so they were only added much later. Although of course southern hemisphere cultures would have been aware of them, but alas, many of those traditional stories have been lost. Oral tradition, unfortunately, is very much dying as we stare at our cell phones. Gail, Tulu in my ear has just said there was something at Hyena Pan that we can go and have a look at. I didn't hear what it is, so let's all go and be surprised together. See what we've got at Hyena Pan. Struggling to see what that is. Something lying on the bank. I see a blacksmith lapwing. Is that a hyena? A hyena? Possibly a deceased hyena? Or are you just lying in the water? There it is. I see it moving. There's one lying in the water and another one lying on the bank. Yes, I can just see the ears. There we go. That's awesome to see. Hyenas chilling in the spa. Well, we had jackals drinking yesterday morning, and now we've got hyenas lolling in the waterhole. Hyenas at Hyena Pan. How awesome. Quite at home in the water, hyenas. They do like to lie around in puddles. Good way to cool off. Also, sometimes even store food under the water, lodge something under a log or something to keep it safe from other scavenging animals. You see how dry and arid this area looks like, or looks at the moment, certainly. So why not visit the oasis at Hyena Pan here? Ah, now that does look like what used to be a hyena. Sorry, any sense view. Good job there. I wonder whether other hyenas would feed on a hyena. I've never seen it, but I see no reason why they wouldn't. They're not known as fussy animals. Uh, Colin, what could have possibly have killed it? Oh, it could have been anything. It could have been a run-in with lions. It could have succumbed to disease from a snake bite. Um, I don't know, but the most common death of hyenas really comes at the hands of male lions. If they catch them, they will kill them. I wouldn't have thought it would be a dispute with another hyena, but you never know. The most logical one would have been at the hands or the jaws of a big male lion. I have unfortunately seen that happen before. It doesn't take long. The lion gets hold of that neck, and it's a good shake. And that's about all she wrote, unfortunately. But interestingly, the head is still intact. Nothing's been feeding on it, on the head, which you would expect if the hyena's been at it, they would have had everything off it. So I would imagine that's been picked dry by vultures more than anything else. So interesting to see that nothing has really eaten the fur or the hair. Well, sorry for anybody who found that a little distressing, but nice to see that there are some living hyenas also in the area. But I'm sure this hyena is not going anywhere. So let's head back up to Old Donyo in Kenya. Hopefully that big dazzle of zebras is still dazzling us at the waterhole. Well, the majority has moved on, but still some stragglers. You see them all in the background. The elephants doing a far better job at sharing their waterhole than they sometimes do up here in Old Onyo. And perhaps even they've accepted that they have to share. That waterhole is getting smaller and smaller and also beginning to dry up. Three-way wrestling match there for between the elephants. That one from the outside saw the other two having a little bit of a push and a shove and decided, no, I want a piece of that. And has come in and thrown his weight around as well. I'd say no real aggression there, just young bulls having a little bit of a spar. See the way the trunk was up and touching one another. If it was serious, that trunk would be tucked out of the way to keep it safe. So this one on the left has got a bit of a wonky tusk as well. The zebra's getting out of dodge there as this elephant goes into reverse. Right, now that the bulls have vacated, let's see how many animals rush down to take advantage. All the zebras coming in now. Quick, quick. Oh, that one's got a bit of a scraggly mane. Lady Macbeth, you've mentioned doing a sky watch at the end of an afternoon safari. Are you referring to sort of a stargazing experience with a laser pointer? If so, I thoroughly agree with you. Must do lots of those. It's such a wonderful way to end the evening, a very sort of holistic and relaxing experience to sit under a sparkling African sky. And so learning about some of those traditional cultural beliefs and stories from Bushman to ancient Zulu to Xhosa and Swana. There's some lovely stories up there. Oop. Oh, the elephant's coming back. Nice to be the biggest fish in the pond, hey? This one in the foreground looks to have a little bit of must. Seems we had a little bit of a camera blip again, but back to Tembe we go, and to our elephants down here. Got a nice big old bull in this one here, certainly. Very tattered ears this one has got. It's 50, yes, I agree. A lovely set of tusks. I was just watching those. When he was looking head on, I thought one was much shorter than the other. But then when I saw him walking past, they seem a little bit more uh, equal in terms of size, but a lovely shape to them, particularly his right hand tusk. Lovely, sort of a very attractive arc, possibly even following that sort of golden ratio. Maybe not quite enough curve for a golden ratio curve, but formidable to say the least. The French word for tusks is la défense, the defense. And they are a very effective form of defense and attack, for that matter. I think we're going to try our luck at Nkoro's waterhole, see what's happening up there in the northern sands. Yeah, there are many more elephants and some giraffes happening. And our poor hippo lying in the middle there, that old boy, tolerating all of these visitors to his oasis. Are you feeling a little bit surrounded there, Mr. Hippo? I guess not much you can do in the face of 20 or 30 elephants surrounding you. Sometimes these bulls can get a little bit cantankerous with people coming down to their watering holes. I remember one in somewhere in the western sector of the sands when a big herd of buffalo came down and he was right in the middle of his watery, yawning and exposing his teeth and rushing at some of the buffaloes just to try and ensure that his personal space was not being too much invaded. But I imagine this one says, old hippo, this one. I'm sure he's seen it all before and will tolerate, safe in the knowledge that the elephants will move on at some point soon. Sort of sheepishly looking around. Really? Come sniff the camera. Come on, put your trunk up. Oh, how beautiful is that, eh? Look at all the texturing of those wrinkles on the skin. Beautiful. A little unsure of something. I wonder if it's just the movement of the camera, possibly a little bit of a mechanical whirring that's causing her. There we go. What you got? Oh, I don't know what she's doing down there. It's causing her to cock that foot. There must have been some vegetation or something at the base of wherever this camera is suspended, which she was trying her hardest to get to. Hmm, crisscrossing those back legs on the slope. Gerald, you're asking about the how do hippos sort of interact with other animals having a drink at their waterhole. Well, to be honest, there's not a great deal they can do about it. As I said, occasionally a grumpy bull might get a little bit irritated, but if they're in a big watering source, they're pretty tolerant of it. I think they accept that there's not much they can do about it. Say every now and again, one might get a little bit aggressive and sort of rush towards an animal, but 9 times out of 10, they don't really mind too much. I think they have a good policy of sharing, which is not normal amongst hippos because they are quite grumpy animals. But it's rare that you see them being too uncomfortable with other animals coming down to drink. So not bothered by antelopes, but say a big herd of buffalo that wants to come in and trample all over his say little oasis there may upset the hippo, but there's not much you can do about it with a herd of 200 or 300 buffalo. So discretion, the better part of valor, most of the time. Certainly, they don't like people coming down to the side of the water. That's you have to be very careful, and there have been certainly a few incidents with people on boats. If you go into the area of a territorial bull, occasionally boats have been sort of attacked by hippos defending their territories. So you have to be a little bit careful, but yes, be very vigilant of hippos. If you want to approach water with hippos in, they might tolerate your presence, but rather not. Watch from a safe distance, because if they rush towards you with their mouth open, creating that massive bow wave, it is rather intimidating. And say, don't underestimate the speed of a hippo either. It can hit 40 kilometers an hour in a straight line on land, and surprisingly agile through the water. They've got such bulk, 2.5 tons or so, they can slice through the water very, very quickly. They're not slowed down by much drag. So I'm sure most of you are aware hippos responsible for quite a few deaths over the course of a year, but Yes, they can be quite aggressive, particularly outside of water, because that's not their comfort zone. They come out at night time to feed, of course, on the grass, and they feel far less comfortable away from the sanctity of their waterhole. So far more likely to be aggressive. And say the biggest problem is that they are by far and away the biggest, most dangerous animal that occurs naturally outside of protected game reserves. So they do come into contact with people a lot more often. People will always come to water sources for collecting drinking water, for washing, for many other reasons, and therefore does bring them into contact with people far more regularly than things like elephants and lions, well, particularly down here in South Africa at least. And so there have been those rather unusual reports, more than one, so it must be a real thing of hippos potentially protecting other animals, those that have got stuck in the mud, helping them get back to shore. There have been some that have been protected from crocodile attacks, or they got in the way of crocodile attacks. Whether or not that's just the hippo and its general disapproval of crocodiles that's coincidentally helping the animal that's under attack, I think is far more likely. But to help an animal that's stuck in the mud and sort of help it to get to shore has been recorded on a few different occasions, which is rather nice to think that hippos do have a caring side as well. Hippos and crocs tolerate one another. They share the same uh, habitat, but they're not really in direct competition with each other, one being a herbivore, the other being a predator. And yes, a young hippo is potentially a nice little morsel snack for a crocodile, but there is an unspoken truce between the two species in general, because no crocodile is going to be stupid enough to try and swim into a pod of hippos and take a youngster. Hippo's bite force is incredibly strong. I think it's about 2,000 pounds per square inch compared to ours, which is far, far less. I think only a couple of hundred. And there have been reports of crocodiles basically being bitten in half by hippos. So I think over the years, this unspoken truce between the two has occurred. But if one youngster gets separated and is away from parental care in the rest of the pod, then it's fair game. There have been the occasional reports of hippos feeding on carrion as well. Yeah, I think let's go to the other side of the sands and have a look what's happening at Juma Dam. Oh, shame, our poor struggling catfish in the rapidly decreasing waters of Gary Dam or Juma Dam. A rather horrifying writhing mass of things. What's that? A stick, perhaps. Where's Dewey when you need it? Looks like something out of an Indiana Jones movie. Snake pit. But we've had quite a few stalks here over the last few days. Uh, Feasting on this, I'm surprised we haven't seen fish eagles also taking advantage, but of course, this will be happening throughout the area. There are quite a few water sources within the Sabi Sands because of the prevalence of water sources around lodges. Those that are not being pumped sufficiently, which is a good thing because we don't want to make water too available for animals at all times because we want to encourage natural movement between areas to give the soil and the vegetation a chance to recover. And these catfish obviously congregating in the deepest part of the water there, making use of the moisture whilst they can. It's amazing to think that fish can survive in areas where there's no water, but catfish well known for digging themselves into the mud, and they can actually gulp down air as well and extract a sufficient amount of oxygen to breathe under those extreme circumstances. A bit like things going into estivation, they'll just lower um, their metabolic rate, basically, so limit their oxygen requirements so that they can still survive and they will become almost dormant, if that's the right word, waiting for the rains to return. There have been cases of certain fish, lungfish, and certain species of catfish which can actually walk over land using um, their fins, and they can actually waddle to the next available water source. Isn't nature amazing? And they'll also secrete a sort of a mucousy substance over their body to prevent desiccation in those situations as well. So, again, we tend to think of fish as just fish, but they've got to survive. And Africa is a continent of extremes, so many adaptations from all sorts of organisms to deal with those harsh conditions. But maybe let's head over to King's Camp and see if we see anything else with unusual adaptations. Well, to the to the Timbavati, an extreme close-up of an elephant. Look at that beautiful skin. All those crinkles and those creases getting covered in water, staying moister for longer in the shade created by those cracks and crevices, just helping to keep that large animal warm in the hot African sunshine, and even the skin itself on a microscopic level has little ridges where or where it can stay moister for longer. Try not to spray the camera, buddy. That's a tree trunk with a front leg. That was decided it's a far better idea to flop down in the middle of the water and have a roll around. I agree immensely. I think I'd have done that a long time ago. Very brazen Egyptian geese just getting into the water amongst all of this chaos. I think that youngster might have something to say about it. Well, spray some water at them. This one's not quite sure what to do. Fly away. Oh, a nice little up close and personal visit from the Ellies there. Let's head over to Pilansberg National Park now to Kwamaratan, see what's happening there. Some nice big bulls taking advantage of what looks to be a river elder. It's a well-built fellow, this one. Looks like in beautiful condition, this elephant. Horse has done an excellent job of covering himself almost, or at least four-fifths of his body. Just needs to get a little bit of mud on that rump, but amazing how accurate they are when they spray the mud. So much of it going up behind the ears to aid in thermoregulation. Nice shady spots. Nice group of big bulls, this though. Just having a little bit of conversation. Scratch the eye. Trunk almost like an octopus tentacle, just sort of enveloping his friend there. But what a nice, touching moment from an animal capable of such power. And yet they still have these beautifully tender moments amongst one another, even at adult size and age. Another lovely little trunk entwined greeting there. Beautiful little nuzzle. Okay, well, looks like these boys are also slowly moving off. So I think let's head back over to Tembe Elephant Park. That was lovely to see those little interactions. Though such a tender moment between such massive animals. They're often, well, they're more than capable of showing that. We expect to see that in breeding herds with females and youngsters, but it's so nice to see that camaraderie and kinship in the bachelor groups as well. A set of tusks on this one coming down as well. It seems we've jumped across to Okokoyo in Namibia. A chance to appreciate the expanse of space in Namibia. If none of you have ever visited Namibia, I strongly recommend it. It is an incredible place to go and visit if you want a feeling of openness and space. It's a perfect example of flat landscape, but punctuated by some incredible geology and rock formations. And a surprising amount of wildlife considering those harsh conditions. Okay, I think we're going to head all the way back up to Kenya and have a look at Oldonyo. And some more elephants. Ah, and an oryx as well. Always nice to see the oryx. See, Azure Julia asking when the elephants put the mud up in their trunks, do they swish it out and rinse it afterwards? I would like to think so, but I'm not really sure. But they have a lot of sort of sensory hairs up in the nostrils, just like we do as humans as well, which will get rid of a lot of it and stop it getting to places it shouldn't be. And they also have that valve at the top of their trunk, which means they don't accidentally suck up water into their sinuses, which, if any of you have ever done that in a swimming pool or whilst out in the sea, can be very, very uncomfortable. But they have a built-in valve to stop that from happening. But yeah, I suppose that there would be a bit of mud build-up, but they can exhale and inhale at a surprising force. So I imagine they're capable of just blasting it out. Oh, look at these two. It's getting a little bit more feisty. Run for your life, zebras. So it's decided we'll let the other one have his moment. He's standing rather proud there, that other one. See that characteristic way the head is held high, trying to make himself look big and intimidating. Ears spread out. A lovely comparison, actually, the two body postures of an uninterested and one could say submissive elephant versus the other more confident one who's really showing off his bulk and his prowess. It is the nice thing about elephants. They are very, very emotive. You could normally get a good idea of what an elephant is thinking from his body language. You see the displacement behavior, irritation, or irritationally, that's not the right word, is it? But just showing his irritation and frustration by spraying water around. They'll often do that through. Are you going to do it again? He's going to chase some zebra now. Hear the trumpeting. But I've had things thrown at me, branches and all sorts thrown at me. I've had a very angry elephant once basically rip up a tree that was probably thicker than my leg and toss it in my general direction whilst on foot, which was a very intimidating moment, I might add. But evidently a bit of a bee in his bonnet, that one. He's decided that this is his waterhole and he's going to prove it. Although the zebras might have appreciated the little shower that they got. Look, he's off. I wonder what his plans are. If he's still chasing zebras behind the bush there, or if he's just decided to go and harass some other members of the community. Ian, it is indeed an all any kind of day, but we are expecting it this time of year. So with the temperatures rising, water in short supply, the requirements that elephants have for water and for keeping cool under these conditions, particularly this time of year, we expect to see a parade of elephants at all the watering holes, taking advantage of it whilst they can, at the detriment to these other animals. This poor zebra is thinking, I really want some of that water, but that's quite the prospect, just in case that Ellie is not in the best of moods. But we saw with the interaction with the other one, I think he is quite content just having a quiet drink on his own. You know, the vocalizations of the zebras in the background, that one of my favourite noises in the bush, often a sort of a distress call or a warning call, but those zebras are still being harassed by that bull, possibly what's causing that vocalization. All the oxpeckers gathering on the rump of this one on the right. Nice to see so many birds coming down and making use of this water as well. We tend to get rather sort of infatuated with all the mammalian activity, but there are many birds that also require water. Hmm. I'm assuming that was an elephant trumpeting. Well, my audio is not wonderful coming through here, but some unusual sounds in the background. Wonder if that Ellie is still chasing people around. See, the body language of this one has changed as well now. Perhaps that other one is approaching again. Sure. I don't know if we can pan to the left and see what's going on. Yeah, well, whatever is happening is being blocked off by that screen there. That's a shame, but there's plenty of activity somewhere. Beautiful view. Look at that lovely notch taken out of the tusk there. See, favouring that right hand tusk for breaking vegetation, using it as a lever. Amazing, over so many years, it's developed that big groove. Actually saw one the other day, a young elephant who had a very, very pronounced groove in his tusk on one side, but couldn't have been more than a teenager. So I assume, therefore, he had slightly weaker teeth, just like some of us do. But he had a very pronounced groove, far deeper than that. Went probably more than 50% through the width of his tusk. But I wouldn't have said he was more than about 14 or 15, the one that I saw. So hopefully he can find himself a good dentist. There's scimitar-like horns of the oryx. Ah, and some eland as well. That's lovely to see. Oryx and eland and elephants and zebras all together. So quite tolerant bull, this one, although he's looking around a little bit with a little bit of uncertainty now. Possibly a little bit too much company. Can still hear plenty of distant trumpeting. I'm really not sure what's going on in the background. Shame we can't see one of those. I'm lovely to see a couple of large of the antelope species, but it sounds like we've got some baboons up at Lentore in Kenya, apparently. So let's go have a quick look and see some of their antics. Just the baboons hanging out in the shade next to the water. Oh, the little one. Hello, little one. Come have a drink. Sweet. They're just adorable, these little baboons. Okay, relaxed male at the back. Ah, thank you, little one. Blocking our view. A bit of fatherly love there. Look at that. Yeah, right, enough. Very nice to see baboons. We don't normally get to see baboons very often here, especially not this close up. Another big boy. Very stocky, actually. Almost looks like a miniature gorilla, this one. These look like they are the olive baboon as opposed to the Shakma baboon that we get down here in southern Africa. Not a baboon species that I'm particularly familiar with, but I assume the social structures would be very similar. That rather unusual oligarchy, as it's known, with a dominant male, but also a group of dominant males who kind of look after the well-being of the troop, defend them from interlopers and potential predators. Look at this little one, isn't that one of the cutest things you've seen? Is that little injury on the back of the neck, or is that just some exposed skin? Amazing to see the world through the eyes of a young baboon like that, and very, very intelligent animals, of course. Wonder how much is being processed. So I'm just doing a quick skim read of olive baboons, because they're not a species that I know specifically well. Apparently, olive baboons and humans share 91% similar DNA. You kind of see that to be true, just their mannerisms. Always entertaining to watch. I think we all feel definitely a connection watching primates. Wesley baboons can be dangerous to humans. I mean, they generally keep themselves to themselves at all. They can be a bit of a nuisance actually, but they were fearful of humans. But if they need to, they can do a lot of damage to humans. They are incredibly powerful for their size, and they have an outrageously formidable set of teeth on them. The canine teeth of a baboon are larger than that of a lion's. So the general rule of thumb is that if a baboon was in your house, you open the doors and hope it leaves, or at least usher it out. But I wouldn't want to get into a confrontation with a big male baboon because you will not come out on the right side of that confrontation, that's for sure. And if a baboon takes your food, that's pretty much just good advice to let it have your food and be better protective of your food next time around. I've seen them rip cupboard doors off hinges. I mean, they are incredibly powerful animals. So they will quite happily take on a leopard. They practice mobbing behavior against predators. So I don't know too much about these specific olive baboons. I can only share with you what I've known about the Chacma baboon, but I would say these look a little stockier and a little bit more powerful than the standard Chacma baboons. And Cat Fan, you are right. They are so much fun to watch, these baboons. A nice little addition to today's show, not something I get to see very much on these cameras, even in Southern Africa. And we've got some waterbuck coming to join us. These are the divisive waterbuck up in Kenya. They lack that white circle of the waterbuck that we get down here in Southern Africa, the white circle on their bottoms. As you can see, they do share that same characteristic of the relatively shaggy hair that we would associate with waterbucks in general. Whether or not that's well, there are lots of theories as to why they have such shaggy hair. One may be to protect against the insects that are found closer to water, where waterbucks are quite happy, although they do, say, range quite far and wide looking for grass, which is the majority of their diet. And the other being, which is more of a theory that I've sort of come up with, although I'm sure it's not the most outrageous and unique one. Oh, there's a little one, hello. Is that generally water collects in lower lying areas, and in winter, particularly down here, it gets very cold in lower lying areas. And if they are going to be found closer to water, it's generally in cooler areas. So you might want that additional layering of fur. But look at this little one; he's rather beautiful, or she. It's slightly more fawn coloured. A lovely little slash of white around the neck. interesting smells on that little post at the back there, that little stone structure. But also share that beautiful heart-shaped nose that all waterbucks have. I think one of most people's favourite features of the waterbuck. Lovely rufous colour on this youngster. Yeah, we just had a little issue with the camera there, so we've zoomed all the way back down to the Timbavati Game Reserve and a camera at King's Camp for the more elephants enjoy the water. This little one looks like got very heavy eyes. Pangolins galore. If only that was what we were seeing, unfortunately not, but a great name, Pangolins galore. Let's hope we can say that at some point. You're saying when you were at Madikwe, you had a trio of baboons join you at breakfast. They came off the roof right into the dining room and eyed the food on the buffet table. Well, if they only eyed it and didn't take it, it could have been a lot worse. There were some photos doing the rounds recently of a house close to where I am where baboons had got into the house. They'd either, I think they'd ripped the fly screen open because they are incredibly strong, and the mess that they had made was ridiculous. It was just, there was hardly a square inch of the house that wasn't just covered. They'd ripped everything out of the cupboards, ripped everything open. They have a tendency to defecate everywhere. They just destroyed the place. So you were lucky they were only eyeing your food and didn't go take it further. But look at this for an amazing view, hey? That's up close and personal with an elephant's trunk for sure. That's amazing. Really see how it bunches up and expands and contracts the motion in all different directions, all those little muscles working in tandem. It can stretch nearly double the length of its in its normal resting position. If you've ever seen those elephants standing on their back legs, reaching way up into the treetops, like they're well known for doing in Mana pools, for example, in Zimbabwe. You see just how much an elephant's trunk can stretch. Look at this, the little one's coming in as well. This is beautiful. You can see some of the sensory hairs on the trunk there. Get out of my personal space. What a great perspective. Nina, no, I have never experienced an elephant birth, and I don't know many guides who have done. It's a very secretive act normally because they are potentially very vulnerable during that time with the little one there. I've seen footage of it, but nothing I've ever witnessed myself. But it must be an incredible experience. I would be slightly nervous of getting too close because the entire family, the emotions are running high. Everybody's super excited, super protective of what's going on. And I think most of the time it happens in the fairly thick bushes for protective reasons. But something I've never witnessed. I've also never actually witnessed elephants mating. I've seen every little one. I've seen, sort of mock matings and attempted matings, but I've never actually witnessed the act in elephants. I saw rhinos mating once. I've seen buffalo give birth. I've seen impala give birth. But witnessing an elephant giving birth or a giraffe giving birth would be something very high on the bucket list, certainly. But these are just incredible views. Rosie Adam, could an ex-circus elephant survive in a herd like this out in the wild? Again, I don't know. I think it pretty much depends on the individual. I mean, the good thing about elephants is that they do have this massive frontal cortex and they do remember. There'll be a large amount of inherent behavior, whether or not, another close-up view, whether or not it would be accepted back into a herd, but if it came from a herd and then met up with that herd decades later, there would definitely be recognition between the individuals there. So not many animals can survive in captivity, then go back out to the wild. And I would think it probably would struggle, but if any animal does have the chance to do so, I would say the elephant has one of the better chances of any of the species out there due to their intelligence and the social nature and that ability to reform social bonds, particularly if they could be reunited with their original herd. This one's giving us a bit of a stare down. but there have been certainly reports of elephants that have been released back into the wild and met up with their natal herds, and as far as I know, they have been accepted, and so because of that social bond, they would be taught and learn very quickly those required behaviors. Oh, don't stand on the camera. Well, these are some of the closest views of elephants I think we've ever had, certainly that I've ever seen on here. Hilary B is saying that last night you guys saw a tiny little baby elephant with Cedric out on drive with wobbly legs. He thought it was possibly only a few hours old. Well, that's very special if that was the case. I unfortunately missed last night. I was out working yesterday afternoon and evening, but that's very special. But I did see, say, what I think to be a little baby zebra I mentioned yesterday, well, about 3 days ago now, that I don't think was much more than 24 hours old. Also very, very wobbly on its legs, but always special to see new life sprouting forth like that. And it's nice to know that the next generation is well on its way. Of course, we are coming into the time for many animals to start giving birth over the next few months. Always look forward to all of these little creches of impalas, and we've got all the wildebeest coming through, all the little tiny warthogs, which are incredibly cute as well. Lots to look forward to over the coming months. Looks slightly unsettled, this cow, though. You can see her having a sniff around. She doesn't look too relaxed. Old Punkster, yes, there's been some incredible close-up views of elephants this afternoon. We've actually had a really interesting last couple of hours from the brief view of the hyenas at Hyena Pan. We've had that one rather rambunctious bull up at Ordonio spraying water at zebras and chasing things around. We've had some tender moments between the bachelor group at Kwamaratan. Lovely to see the baboons and the waterbuck. We've had eland, we've had oryx, all sorts going on. This female is definitely getting wind of something. Very much the up periscope mode that she's in at the moment. I see an interesting scent on the air. You expect to see that if you're out on a walk and you're viewing elephants from a safe distance, of course, and the wind suddenly changes, you just see all these trunks pop up. The periscope just suddenly getting wind of your presence. There's the one at the back also having a smell now as well. But her posture suggests she's less bothered by it now than she was a few minutes ago. Even before she put her trunk up, you could kind of see that she was uncomfortable about something or weighing something up in her mind. But she looks a little more relaxed now, so maybe she's analysed that smell and decided that it's not an imminent threat. DJ, those sensory hairs on the trunks are, well, as the name suggests, they are for feel. It's sometimes difficult for the elephant to see what it's doing, particularly if it's placing something up in the mouth or fiddling around on the ground. They're far more reliant on touch and particularly smell, but they're very, very protective of those of the trunks. I know of a report of once there where a snake wrapped itself around an elephant's trunk, and the elephant went ballistic and went piling off into the bush. Finally, managed to dislodge the snake and stomped it into oblivion. But it's just the tactile hairs to be able to gauge touch and the size, and if it's sticking its trunk into a tree, in through the branches, just to be able to have a good spatial awareness of where that trunk is probing into. But she definitely seems to have relaxed now. She's made the decision that that scent was not, well, it's either moving away or possibly the wind has changed and she can no longer smell it, or has just decided it's no longer a threat. Well, she's made a quick decision about something now, though. It's so fascinating to just watch these behavioural changes, and because we can't on a, if we were there, we could check and like a giant puzzle. Maybe a musting bull coming in, perhaps, or just the arrival of another herd. But you could see there was like a switch that was flipped. Then she suddenly decided, nope, we're going that way. Della, yeah, I'm sure the animals can hear the camera moving around. Remember, their hearing is far more sensitive than ours. So those ones who frequent these areas where the cameras are set up, I'm sure have got used to it very, very quickly. But for a new animal who's never perhaps visited this waterhole, just the movement of the camera, the strange mechanical whirring will definitely be of interest to them to begin with. But I will deem it not to be deem it not to be a threat very, very quickly, I'm sure, after a quick investigation. There's only a good thrash around in the water, that one. Yeah, I think maybe that female could smell this approaching herd. Maybe she went to go and greet an old friend. I say perhaps there is a musting bull trailing this herd that she was not too comfortable with. There's an even tinier one there, completely submerging himself, doing his hippo impression. Careful, boy, look at the feet sticking up and everything. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, careful. Almost got smacked in the face. Well, regrettably, we're almost out of time, everybody. Only got about a minute or so left, but I hope you've enjoyed the show today. We've had some wonderful views, close-ups of baboons, extreme close-ups of these elephants at King's Camp. Great to see the hyenas well, two of the three hyenas at Hyena Pan there. But a wonderful show. Thank you for all of your questions and your comments. Don't forget that the fun never stops. I'll be back again tomorrow, 12:30 Central African time for another session here at Live at the Waterhole, and you can catch up with the team on the afternoon safari as well later this afternoon. But whatever your plans are for the rest of the day, I hope you have enjoyed our little corner of paradise that we've brought to you, and hopefully you'll be able to join us tomorrow at the same time. Have a great day, everyone.